This happened when I was 18. I'm 27 now. This was before I discovered my interest in true crime. So I was a bit naive and not always aware of my surroundings. I worked at one of those mall kiosks. You know, the ones who harass you as you walk by. I worked at the kiosk next to a kiosk my sister worked at. We pretty much opened and closed 5 days a week with each other. One day, a man who was obviously drunk kept passing by my kiosk and the one on both sides of mine. All 3 kiosks had only female workers. All of us were pretty young. He approached the kiosk behind mine and was very creepy with the girl, making comments that were unsettling, mentioning he's going to do something after she gets off work. I don't know the details, and when he approached me, I didn't know that conversation took place, just that he was obnoxious from what I had observed. After he left her kiosk, my sister went over to talk to her, which he then took as an opportunity to approach me. He started asking me all these questions about my life, general random questions. I was standoffish, but somewhat still engaging. I wasn't sure how to react. I eventually told him I had some stuff I had to do for work, and I needed to get back to it. He looked mad, slammed his hands down on the surface in front of me, and came close to my face and said, "You disappoint me." My sister saw this and came over and cussed him out and told him to leave. We called the mall security to get him removed, but for some reason it didn't happen. He continued to peek at us from a distance for a while, but then we just didn't see him and figured he left or had been kicked out. At closing time, 9 p.m., I took longer than my sister and the other girl because I was new, so they went to have a smoke and to wait on me. The mall was empty aside from very few associates at the other stores closing. A friend of mine that worked at one of the stores nearby my kiosk noticed a man crouching between a space not far from me, and asked if he needed anything, and the man just told him he was waiting for his ride, then pointed to me. I found this out the next day. After I was done closing, my sister and the other girl came in after their smoke and walked me out. If they hadn't been there, who knows what this guy was planning. I've had creepy experiences, but this was one of the creepiest. Sorry for the length of this. But the takeaway is always be aware of your surroundings. You never know if someone is lurking nearby, waiting for the right opportunity to get you. I was 15 at the time. Due to stress and recent mildly traumatic events, I felt a really strong need to get out of my house. I ended up booking it to a large willow tree at the end of my neighborhood. On the way there, I passed by a large white van. It was parked near a family acquaintance's house, within view of the tree. Either the van lights were on, or a light inside the van was, but I didn't look in. I was panicky as hell, and just wanted to get to the tree. So I got to the tree, climbed in, eventually calmed down, and started to go home. Before I left, I took a flash photo of the tree with my phone. I was having a really cringy photography phase. I was in view of the van at that point, and the flash was bright as hell, and nearly immediately, the van books it out of the neighborhood, speeding and everything. I honestly didn't think much of it at the time, as I was still out of it, but looking back, that's a bit odd, right? I'm curious if anyone has any idea what was up with that van. I lived in a typical Midwestern suburban neighborhood. We didn't get a lot of crime, and I skated around it frequently, so I knew no one in the neighborhood had such van. I passed right by the van on the sidewalk, and I was 5'1", 100 pounds. Anyone could have grabbed me if they wanted to. Probably was a creepy encounter to whoever was in the van as well. Some tiny-ass kid comes tearing down the sidewalk in the middle of the night, and a formal button-down and flannel pajamas climbed into a tree, and 10 minutes later a flash goes off? I work as a conductor, and half of the past 15 years. I am a tough woman who has been through a lot. In my work, we really see everything. I cannot count how many times I have been sexually harassed or other uncomfortable situations. There is one situation that stands out and I still remember, even though it's been a couple of years ago. We were almost at the end station. One man came onto the train. He was dragging a black, big trash bag with him. As I went to him to look at his ticket, I got this horrible feeling. It was like a knife to my stomach. I started to back up and he came closer and closer, muffling something. As I said, I'm used to people from all social layers and all colors of the rainbow, but this man felt extremely dangerous. I did my work and went to the train driver. I told him I had a bad feeling and asked if I could go out with him to my car. He said yes, but had a couple of things to do, so I waited. It took around 15 minutes. We went outside towards the car. The man was hiding behind a wall waiting for me. I almost screamed when I saw him. He started following me, but when he saw that the train driver was with me, he went another way. It doesn't sound that bad just reading this, but this feeling of true fear I have never experienced before this way. So here goes. As a young child, my mom worked and went to school, and my dad was a construction worker, which often meant he was out of town. This left my grandma, who was retired, to watch us, since they couldn't afford daycare. I was 4, little sis was 2, and big sis was 9 for the context. One day my grandmother decided since the weather was nice, it would be a good day to take my 2 sisters and I to the park. My little sister and grandma mostly played on the swings and hung out on a blanket in the toddler area of the park. My sister had met up with a friend from school and was playing, which left me on the jungle gym, also on the toddler side of the park, happily playing with 2 other young girls around my age. It's a bit fuzzy what exactly we were playing and talking about. I mean, this was almost 25 years ago now, but I do clearly remember one of the little girls I was playing with bragging about how she and her family lived in a van, and how she had lots of Barbies in her van. Obviously, being a 4-year-old little girl, I loved Barbies. Next thing I know, the other little girl we had been playing with asked if she could bring her Barbies on the playground. She said no because they'd get dirty, but her dad wanted us to get into the van with her to play. The other little girl left to ask her mom. I was going to ask my grandma, but she was busy with my little sister, so I thought it would be okay to just go. All it took was my grandma looking away for a split second, and this little girl's dad was leading her and I away by the hand. When my grandma saw this, she, for obvious reasons, became upset with the man and made him let go of me. I remember clear as day him telling her, "It's okay, we're just going to my van to play Barbies." And my grandma responding with, "She doesn't get into anyone's car but mine. If you want her to play Barbies, bring them out here." The man just shrugged, walked off with the little girl, got into their van, and left. It's never quite dawned on me how weird this was until I had my own kids. Hey everyone. So for context, I worked at a Walmart overnight. Our lunch break is at midnight, so I went to get some food and then sat in my car in the parking lot, which is usually empty around the time, except for my coworkers' vehicles and the occasional person sleeping in their car. I was sitting there eating for a little while when I noticed a white car began to circle the parking lot 4 or 5 times, and the whole time I was wary of what they were doing. I'm a 19-year-old girl and like 5'3". Eventually another car, this one was dark gray, showed up and began to do the same. After a couple minutes, the white car drove in circles around my car twice, and then the gray car did the same thing. Then they both pulled up in the parking spaces on both sides of me. So I said, fuck that, and I put my car into drive so fast. I don't know what they wanted, but it was really creepy. I live with 3 friends in a student house in a university town. The guys are all great but can get pretty damn rowdy sometimes. A lot of us are from a big city around 3 hours away from where we go to school. So over the summer, we're all away from our student house. It's generally pretty safe, and we've never had any incidents in the past. Last summer, due to COVID, my girlfriend and I were unemployed and decided to go up to the town where we both go to school. Now, her place is quite a lot nicer than mine, so we would usually stay at her place for the nights. One morning, I woke up to a call from my landlord in the morning. I remember him telling me, "Hi, yeah, so the police are on their way." At this point, I'm thinking one of my housemates must have come up and done some serious damage to the house. My landlord then tells me that someone broke into the house through a back window last night. I immediately got dressed and left my girlfriend's house and head over to mine. When the cops show up, I go through the house to see what was taken. All the doors are broken down, and one of the knives from our kitchen is missing. After checking out what was taken, I eventually noticed that the missing kitchen knife was on my dresser in my room. I genuinely think if I was home sleeping, whoever broke in would have stabbed me.